Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Representative Chrissy Houlihan's Telephone Town Hall. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. We're waiting for some more folks to dial in. So in the meantime, I invite you all to answer a poll. So the question is, do you plan on visiting the new FEMA Disaster Resource Center in Downingtown that's located at 945 East Lancaster Avenue? Press 1 if you do plan on, press 2 if you don't plan on visiting, or 3 if you're unsure. So once again, we're going to get started here in just a minute or so, but in the meantime, if you would answer our poll, do you plan on visiting the new FEMA Disaster Resource Center in Downingtown, located at 945 East Lancaster Avenue? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 if you are unsure. For those who are just joining us on the line, we are answering a quick poll before we get started about your plans to visit the new FEMA Disaster Resource Center in Downingtown. Once again, press 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for unsure. And with that, it looks like we have quite a few folks on the phone, and we will get started. So once again, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Representative Chrissy Houlihan's Telephone Town Hall, focused this evening on resources available to you, our community members who've been impacted by Hurricane Ida. We've got, like I said, quite a few of us on the line tonight, and Chrissy will be juggling a dozen or so votes on the House floor this evening, so we will go ahead and get started. For everyone calling in, if you have a question at any point throughout the town hall, please press *3. We have a wonderful lineup of panelists that Chrissy will be introducing here momentarily, ready to answer your questions. Again, to ask a question, press *3, and you'll be connected with a member of Chrissy's staff who will help get you into our queue. We want to get to as many questions as possible. And with that, I will hand it over to you, Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Thank you so much, Aubrey. Just confirming that you all can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, Chrissy.
Terrific. And I want to welcome everyone to our town hall. This is our 13th town hall this year. And tonight we will be talking about the resources that are available to you and to other members of our community who have been impacted by Hurricane Ida. And as we all know, this was a historic storm with historic damage as a result of that September 2nd storm. Flooding certainly has ruined lives and livelihoods across the countless neighborhoods of our community, and I've been able to visit a neighborhood specifically where a tornado tore through a residential area, making homes inhabitable, and I've met with and spoken to very heroic first responders who have braved the floodwaters to make rescues, and at times wading literally up to their necks in some cases to help people. I've seen firsthand how many small businesses that were severely damaged and how many lives that were sadly lost. Destruction caused by this storm ravaged areas like Phoenixville, Modena, Coatesville, Oxford, and Downingtown, and other parts of our area. And we are certainly not defined by this destruction because we are, in fact, defined by the heroism that is born out of these dark hours and how we will work together certainly to pull out of this. I couldn't be more proud of our community and the way that we've banded together once more in the face of a pretty daunting challenge. And so we're here to answer your questions and to assure you that all the levels of government, local, state, and federal, are banding together, just as we all have, to face the challenges that are in front of us and to repair the damage that's been done by Hurricane Ida. The truth be told, we are already seeing that kind of action happen, and here's what has happened so far. On September the 8th, Governor Wolf requested a federal major disaster declaration, and within 24 hours, I sent a bipartisan and bicameral letter with my Pennsylvania congressional colleagues to President Biden urging him to swiftly consider and approve Governor Tom Wolf's major disaster declaration request. The following day, President Biden's acted decisively to make sure to declare that major declaration for individuals, for small businesses, and for some nonprofits. I applaud, and we should all feel comfort in the very unified spirit with which every level of our government so far has pushed to bring assistance to our community as soon as possible. But that's certainly only the beginning of this next phase that we find ourselves in, which is recovering and rebuilding. So to everyone listening who has been impacted, you are not forgotten, and we are here to listen and to help. And tonight we are very, very fortunate to have with us today 3 expert panelists and their dedicated support staff that are all on the line with us to share crucial updates on available resources. You might want to grab a pen or pencil and paper so that you can take notes, because I know that there will be some good information provided that might be worth jotting down. A reminder to press 3 if you have any questions, and a member of my team will be processing those questions. We are joined today by FEMA District 3 Federal Coordinating Officer Craig Levy. We are also joined by Mr. Randy Padfield from PEMA, the head of PEMA, and we are also joined by Officer Jeff Thomas in Chester County, in the Chester County Department, Director of Emergency Management, Bill Turner. That concludes the beginning of my remarks, but before we begin the opening remarks, I'm going to be introducing each one of these members of our panel to give a little bit of an opening remark. Craig, would you mind please introducing yourself and your title, and would you please start us off?
Thank you, Representative Houlihan. Yes, my name is Craig Levy. I am a federal coordinating officer assigned to this disaster, appointed by President Biden to coordinate the federal support to the residents of Pennsylvania. I appreciate this opportunity to be here this evening, and our role is, during a disaster and during this particular disaster, to support the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in all of the programs that they have to help survivors get through this time. We coordinate closely with our counterparts here in Pennsylvania at the Emergency Management Agency. Also, with President Biden's declaration of the major declaration for Pennsylvania on Friday, the 10th of September, that allowed the federal government to provide federal funds, resources, and personnel. And these disasters are state-managed, federally supported, and locally executed. We currently have 3 disaster recovery centers, including the one for which the poll is referenced in the state, and we have 3 more that we are building out as we speak. We are working closely with our counterparts here at FEMA every day to help survivors get through this event, and I thank you very much for having me here this evening.
Thank you very much, Craig, for being here today. And now I'm going to turn over the remarks to Mr. Randy Padfield, who's the PEMA director, for his opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman Houlihan. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank the Congresswoman and her staff, obviously, for the opportunity to participate in this important town hall with our colleagues from Chester County Emergency Management Agency and FEMA. All of our agencies have worked together through the response and now into the recovery phase after the remnants of Hurricane Ida have impacted the state. We understand that many of you attending the call tonight may have been impacted by this storm. I'd like everyone to know that the sole focus of our agencies has been to expedite recovery operations for those that have been most impacted. That has really been the focus of all of our energy after the response phase. We understand that this can be a very unfamiliar and what can be on the outside appear to be a complicated process. Anticipating that many of you have specific questions regarding your individual recovery, we've assembled a team of subject matter experts, as the Congresswoman indicated, from FEMA, PEMA, and Chester County to answer your questions, and look forward to providing you information regarding your specific concerns regarding these impacts and how we can hasten your recovery efforts. So we look forward to participating tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for joining us. And last but not least, we have Chester County Deputy Director for Emergency Management, Mr. Bill Turner, on the line. Would you mind a couple of opening remarks and introducing yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. This is Bill Turner, Deputy Director for Emergency Management with the Chester County Department of Emergency Services. And thank you, Congresswoman, for hosting this town hall and allowing us the opportunity to speak with our residents. That the goal here really is to let them know that there's a ton of resources at the county, the state, and federal level available to them to help them recover. A lot of them that were impacted by the remnants of Hurricane Ida may be scratching their head or trying to think, where do I begin to rebuild or recover? And we want to make sure we take the opportunity to get the word out about those resources. As it was mentioned, this truly was a historic storm. Our rivers crested at historic levels. Our first responders and National Guard were out there executing over 300 water rescues the night of the storm, and 35 of our 73 municipalities have reported damages. In addition to flooding, we had a confirmed EF2 tornado in East Nottingham Township, and over 700 homes have been reported impacted from the flooding and tornadoes, with 30 of them being completely destroyed and over 300 with major damage requiring extensive repairs. We know there's over 129 households with about 420 people that have called our Regional 211, which is a hotline that anyone that is experiencing homelessness or housing needs can call 24/7. So we know there's a lot of families and a lot of individuals that have been displaced due to the flooding, and we want to make sure that we get them the resources they need. When it comes to businesses, we know that over 77 have reported impacts to their business operations and damages to their facilities. We're certain there's a lot more damages out there to both households and businesses, but that has been, what has been reported to us as of today. We want to make sure that we encourage individuals to get to the Disaster Recovery Center that FEMA has established in Downingtown that was highlighted at the beginning of the call, that opened just on Monday, and we've already had about 75 visitors processed through that center. So we really want to see more, as we know there's a lot of individuals out there. And it's not just federal resources for filing a FEMA claim. If you have any other needs, there's a wealth of resources there, such as nonprofits, voluntary organizations active in disaster, like Salvation Army and the Red Cross, and other county and local resources that can help individuals. So thank you for having me tonight. We know that there's a long road ahead of us to rebuild and recover here, but we want to make sure that our residents have the resources available to them to get to that point.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, Bill, I really appreciate it. And now we're actually have the opportunity to move on to questions from our community. And we obviously get a lot of the same kind of questions in our calls that we get at our office a lot. So I thought maybe what we would do is start with a couple questions that we get frequently, and a reminder to people to please hit *3 if you have any questions for all of us, and we will be sure to process them through the people from our team who are on the line now to help us. Also, a reminder that there are a lot of people on the phone right now, and if for some reason we're not able to get to your call, one of the members of my team or myself will be giving you a call back within the next 2 business days. So first, if it's okay, I'd like to start with Craig. This week, FEMA did set up a disaster relief center in Downingtown. And if someone from our community does need disaster-related assistance from FEMA and comes to the center, what should they bring with them?
Thank you. That is a great question, and that is a very often asked question. First, we encourage survivors to file with their insurance company if they have insurance. Next, we encourage everyone to register for federal assistance by going to either the website of disasterassistance.gov or calling our registration hotline at 800-621-3362. And it's important to know, don't wait to apply if you think you're missing some of the documents I'm about to list, or if you don't have all of the information. Once you apply, you get a registration number, and you can always come back with the documents or the information once you do find it. We do realize that in floods and such, some of your documents can be damaged. You may not have access to them, and you may need to find them in another manner, and it may take a few days to find those. So once you get into the system and get the process moving forward, it does make it easier for you. Now, beginning the application process, what you want is your address with your zip code, directions to your property, especially if it's one of those places where the GPS doesn't work well, the condition of your damaged home, insurance information if you have it and if it's available, your Social Security number, a phone number where you can be contacted, and an address where you can get mail. We also would like to get direct deposit information. Disaster assistance funds can be sent directly to your bank account. So having your bank account information as far as the bank account type, the account number, the routing number, so that we can do direct deposit into your account. And then you can stay in touch with us. After registering, you'll be given a FEMA registration number. Make sure you write that number down and save it, because you'll need that number whenever you contact FEMA in order to accurately access your files. And then after the registration is complete, you will receive a call from FEMA for follow-up. And so this is an important thing to remember. A lot of us with our phones now look at our caller ID and we screen calls that we don't recognize. You are going to get a call possibly from a FEMA housing inspector to come out and inspect your damages. And it will be from a number, of course, that you don't recognize. So please monitor your phone and answer those calls, and that will help expedite your process.
Thank you, Craig, for that really complete answer. And as a reminder, this is going to be sent across via on our website as well as being posted on Facebook. So in case people hadn't gotten all that information, you can resource it after this call. My next question is for Randy, and as a follow-up to that question, why do people fill out both the FEMA and the PEMA forms? And are there separate streams of funding available from these organizations?
Thank you, Congresswoman, and this is a frequent question as well. So there are not separate funding streams associated with it. It is just related to the sequence of activities that occur after a disaster. So one of the things, as you discussed, we have to make application to the federal government for a major disaster declaration. As part of making that application, we have to do what's called a preliminary damage assessment to be able to quantify the damages. And they're broken down into individual assistance, which is what we're really focused on this evening. So we really want to make sure that we capture those individual assistance claims and people that have been impacted. So that's really key. We usually work that through the county emergency management agency, but then that information is provided to FEMA as part of the governor's disaster declaration request. And then when the major disaster declaration is declared, then there's a separate FEMA process as well. And what I want people to understand is that we actually provide the information to FEMA, or we'll be providing the information to folks that registered and reported damages. And we'll be doing a reconciliation of that to be able to make sure. We want to make sure that people that did register initially to be able to support the request for the federal disaster declaration, that also they register with FEMA. There may actually be other registrations as well. So they may actually register with a voluntary organization that's active in disasters, Red Cross, Salvation Army, any one of the VOADs that may also be providing support. They may have a separate registration process there. So this kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. It may seem like a very unfamiliar or somewhat complicated process, but it just depends sometimes on the sequencing and the reason for the form. So we have to justify first that we meet the thresholds for a federal disaster declaration. Then when it is declared, then FEMA will come in and then start that process for registering for aid. What is really key is that we really want folks that if they reported preliminary damages, as Mr. Turner indicated, we really want to make sure that they avail themselves of the full capability and recovery benefits that are available by registering with FEMA. So we are going to make sure that, anybody that reported those damages initially, we want to make sure that they get into the FEMA system and are able to register for recovery benefits.
Thank you, Randy, for that question. And I know that there are people in the queue with questions. A reminder, press *3 if you have any questions, and we'll be sure to put as many as we are able to on the line. And finally, Bill, if you could give us a little bit of an update or insight into how Chester County has evaluated the needs of our community, and what is the process of public assistance, and how do we quantify that?
Sure. So, everything, a common phrase that we use in our field is that, all disasters start and end at the local level. So in the beginning, as Director Padfield just discussed, it's really up to the local municipalities and counties to capture those damages and evaluate the needs and impacts to the community. Once we see that it's exceeded our capabilities or our resources, we start discussions with the state. And at times things grow like this incident that require us to seek federal assistance, which in this case we did meet those thresholds to get the individual assistance. But we also know that there's a lot of impacts to local government and eligible private nonprofits, the infrastructure. So we're also making a case that's based more on a dollar threshold to seek what they call public assistance, to bring in reimbursement to help rebuild things like bridges, public facilities, roads, water treatment facilities, and things like that. So really the whole idea is that we need to know what the impacts are to the community. We launched a public survey right after the storm that was really well received, and a lot of individuals filled it out that really allowed us to assess the damages and quickly map and detail where the impacts were, and quickly work with our state and federal partners to get that individual assistance declaration. So we appreciate everybody reporting that, but as Director Padfield said, it's really important that even if you've reported your damages to either the county, your municipality, or maybe a VOAD, like the Red Cross or Salvation Army, that you still need to file a claim with FEMA, and that you need to do so by, calling the FEMA hotline or going to the disaster assistance website. So everything eventually would come back to us. So FEMA is here to support us with the Disaster Recovery Center, and we have a lot of resources available. But at some point, full circle, this will come back to the locals, to the county and the municipalities. So we also have a lot of groups looking at long-term recovery, understanding that some of these needs will go far beyond the assistance that we have here in the immediate short term, but we're prepared to handle this for the long term.
Thank you, gentlemen, all of you, for those terrific opening remarks. And we're going to be heading over to the portion of the conversation with our audience. A reminder, please *3 if you have any questions. Also, a reminder that Pennsylvania 6 is all of Chester County and the lower portions of Berks County, which is inclusive of the city of Reading. So in case you have questions about any of those areas, we have people who are able to help with those. The answers, however, may be different depending on what county that you're from. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Aubrey, who has been getting questions from our audience. Aubrey, who is our first person?
Thank you, Chrissy. Our first question comes from it comes from Paul in Pocopson. Paul, you should now be on the line.
Hi, Christy. This is Paul Manera calling. I'm a resident of Pocopson Township. We have a unique community here. We have homes along the Brandywine River, and our homes were not only damaged by floodwaters, but several of our homes were lifted off the piers. And in the situation with my house, my neighbor's house hit my house when it was lifted off. So I had a FEMA inspector come out last Sunday, and he walked around the house but stated he could not go inside the house, was not allowed, and would not walk underneath the house. So I had asked, how would I get an accurate description of not only the flood damage that happened to my house, but now structural damage? And he said he's not a structural engineer. That would be above his pay grade, and he was going to write the description as I described. So my question is, I could have two different assessors out here and have two different cost assessments on the repair of my home. So I'm asking, why aren't they allowed to look at the damage and especially their structure? Why isn't there someone with that type of discipline who would be able to record the appropriate damage that was done?
And Paul, first off, I'm very, very sorry for what's a really scary time in your family's life, and I hope that things are quickly heading back into some sense of normalcy. It seems like probably the best person on our team to answer that might be Craig. Craig, could you be able to help us understand the process and how Paul can get perhaps a little bit more specific help?
Yes, John Donahue from my team will speak to the answer to this. John?
Hi, good evening. So, Paul, there's a couple of things that are here. One is the safety factor. They want to make sure that they don't go under a structure that is, potentially not safe. You always have the opportunity, if you don't agree with FEMA's decision, to appeal that decision. There's a process for that, and I would recommend in your case, if you do have damages, as you say you do, to get an estimate or a structural engineering report. You can always send that in to us, and we would look at that for potential reimbursement, since it's a lot more detailed than what the inspector could do on the inspection when he was there.
Gentlemen, do you have anything further to add to that, or should we move on to the next question? And Paul, if we have your information as well, and we can make sure that we reach out and connect you with people over in the FEMA area too, to make sure you get your questions answered. Aubrey, who might be next?
Sure. So thank you both for helping that next. We have Kyle in Reading. Kyle, you should be live.
Hi, everybody. This is Kyle Matuzek. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we could still hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that. So I live in Lower Analysis. It's right by Reading, Pennsylvania. And originally, people around here didn't know who to call, and they were just calling 911 and 211. There were reports coming out of Reading that the chief of the fire department and the municipality of Reading were denying people to file damage assessments and turning people away, and told them there was no reason to file. My question is, for Berks County, how can we get an accurate assessment on all the damages and reach the threshold to get assistance? And I also know from our municipality, they sent out an email saying that businesses got assistance, but individuals were not eligible.
Thank you so much for that question, and I think perhaps we might be able to ask Director Padfield for that. And as again, I said, there's a little bit of a difference between Chester and Berks, and maybe, sir, you could elaborate on what that difference is and what we can be doing about that.
Sure. Thank you, Congressman Houlihan. We talked about it. It starts with the damage assessment process. We can definitely look into that. We work with the County Emergency Management Agency, and then the county works with the local emergency management coordinators. So they may vary by municipality, but it's really key. What we see a lot of times is that if people do not believe that they will meet the threshold, some agencies and organizations are hesitant to be able to report those damages. And it's really key. We really work with all of our response partners that we deal with on a regular basis to be able to make sure that we can quantify any of the damages, especially if we have folks that have individual damage from whatever the event happens to be, to really make sure that we have a good accounting of the damage across the state in all of the counties to be able to support any request for federal assistance that we're going to make. There are also other types of assistance. So we may not be able to make a federal declaration request because we may not meet those thresholds. However, there are other pieces of assistance that may be available to those folks that are most impacted. So from our perspective, this is something that we obviously can take back to the county. I know that our staff has been working with all of the counties, and we hold county coordination calls on a regular basis to be able to assess those damages. But it's really key that that starts at the local level. And it's a little disconcerting to hear that folks who are being dissuaded from actually reporting those damages, because that's completely opposite of what we try to promote from our level, working with the counties and the counties working with the municipalities. So Kyle, we will definitely look into that from the Berks County perspective moving forward. But that is something that we really encourage folks to do, is make sure those damages are reported. And even if we don't make the thresholds, we use that information to really inform what the total impact of the state happens to be from disasters and other emergencies. We're seeing a lot more localized impacts that are really significant from heavy precipitation events. We've seen those increase. We know that greater than 90% of our flooding events now occur outside of riverine flooding and the special flood hazard zones because of flash flooding, and it's really critical that we capture those damages to inform lawmakers, to inform others of how things are changing and really truly what the impacts are across the state, not just to public infrastructure, but also to individuals that are impacted by weather events.
So to be clear, just to have a clarifying question there, for people like Kyle from places like Reading, where should he start? Should he be starting by giving a call to PEMA, or should he be starting by talking to his county, or should he be visiting Chester County's Relief Center for FEMA, or none of those?
So the best starting point is that wherever your municipality happens to be, wherever you reside, is to work with your emergency management coordinator in that municipality. And sometimes that person is not known. The next best step would actually be to go to the county and report it to the County Emergency Management Agency. But most of the time, counties work with their local emergency management coordinators. Many of those individuals are volunteers, so sometimes that's a little bit of a challenge. But then the default should be the county. And then eventually that information, once it's reported, makes its way to us. And then we work, obviously, if there's a federal disaster declaration in conjunction with FEMA. And then that information is used to inform if we have to do a joint damage assessment, where we go to be able to do and conduct those joint damage assessments with FEMA. So that's why that information is really critical. And if they start at the local level, obviously if there's hesitancy there, I would escalate it to the next level. And then, if they, for some reason, do not get, good direction from the county, then obviously they can bring it to us. But ultimately, that information is collected at the local level and eventually makes it to us through kind of a comprehensive damage reporting system.
Thank you. And for those who have a pencil and paper, the number for Berks would be 610-374-4800. So 610-374-4800. Aubrey, let's go ahead and take another phone question.
Yes, and the next constituent has a question that a few folks have asked. So Esther from Downingtown, you should now be live. Ms. Brown, are you still?
Yes. Yeah, this is Reverend Brown from Mount Raymond Church in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. I went on the FEMA website and was directed to the Small Business Administration because FEMA only does not handle nonprofits and churches. And our church sustained over $100,000 in damage. And so will there be any financial resources available to small churches like us? We can't afford a loan for up to $100,000.
And we did have quite a few questions, one from Reverend Brunson from Coatesville and another from Robert from Malvern, having the same question relating to the status of financial help for churches. And would it be okay if I turned that over to Director of Padfield? I'm sorry, possibly Bill would be a better person for that.
Representative Houlihan, it's Randy. Hang on a second. I'm going to refer this actually to our colleagues from FEMA.
Oh, perfect.
The Small Business Administration representative was unable to call in this evening. We will be passing this question to them, and we will get you the answer so that you have that information from them on their programs and things that are available from that organization.
I appreciate that, and for folks who are from my team on the line, please do make sure that we kind of put a star by all those that are in this particular category so that we can make sure to address this, and we'll also post the answers on our website as well. And I apologize for not having the answer readily available to you, and we'll get to the bottom of that. Aubrey, do we have any other questions?
Yes, we do. So next we have Ginny from Westchester. So Ginny, you should now be live.
I'm here, and my question is, we had damage to a farm. The barn got 6 feet of water, so anything that was close to the ground was either floated away or was damaged or destroyed. What are my next steps? The animals, thankfully, are fine. The structure's okay. It's equipment and property and the cost of fixing things.
And Ginny, you're from Westchester, is that correct?
That's right.
And so let's go ahead and direct this to FEMA since Westchester and Chester County are part of that process. Craig, would you be able to help us?
Good evening. So the question in regards to the farm and farm equipment, that would also, we would work through the Small Business Administration, working on, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. USDA, Department of Agriculture, has programs in disaster declarations to assist farming interests, and that would be the direction that we would want to go, is the USDA, and we will get you information how to contact them.
And I think this brings up a point both, through Ginny and also through the various questions from our community from churches, which are, kind of different structures and different organizations than help for individuals and individual families. And perhaps what's appropriate is we will put together a separate conversation of some form or a separate set of resources for those who fit into that category, who may be going through the Small Business Administration as an example, rather than being individuals. And I will take that note and make sure that we provide resources for that as well. Do we have any other questions, Aubrey?
We do. The next question comes from Ryan in Downingtown. Ryan, you should now be on the line.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for taking the time. My question is, a little different. We had Downingtown, we had our borough meeting, last night. We had some rain today as well. I don't know where, FEMA or PEMA would come in on this question, but, I've lived on the Brandywine River for some time. We've always been in Chester County. It does seem, at least to the untrained eye, Hurricane Ida was quite an amount of water, but, it seems to be getting, at least from my perspective, a little quicker that the water fills and the water comes up to the crest. And, we haven't been quite in the loop with, suggestions for, adjustments and how we're going to navigate the water, or if it's just going to continue to build up. There is a lot of building, on the surface in the town, which is great, but it does seem, at least to me, a lot of the runoff and the water, and again, we're 30 feet off the water on a 20-foot ledge. It does seem that there's some, quicker filling bathtubs per se, and my worry is if we don't, bring it up on more of a bigger scale, or that it'll persist, and we'll continue to have these calls. Is there anything there for direction for the borough, or how we can continue to at least try to see if there's other ways to navigate this water? Because when it when it rains as much as Ida did, it fills pretty quickly.
And I really, really appreciate your call, because it's evident that, a 100-year flood that happens twice in 3 months is not a 100-year flood, and we definitely have to be planning for the future, and we certainly need to recognize that this is going to happen to us again in some way, shape, or form. So some of the work that I'm doing literally as we speak is, making sure that we're able to get the infrastructure bill that was most recently passed by the Senate side of Washington over to the House side for a vote. And I'm very hopeful that we'll have the opportunity to vote on that on Monday. And I will be voting for that infrastructure bill, which contains a lot of resources in it for a lot of these issues that we're talking about with climate resilience and water runoff and those sorts of things. And so we need to be preventative. We need to be prophylactic that we're doing, and of course we also need to address what's going on now. Places that I've been visiting were really caught off guard by water in places that they'd never seen it before, at levels that they'd never seen it before. So my team is working with various organizations, both local and statewide and also federal, to understand how we can coordinate better when we have these kinds of critical weather events. But I also, if it's all right, would like to turn this over to Craig from FEMA to talk a little bit about that as well. And then I would also like to hear from PEMA and Chester County on this really important issue of how do we make sure that we don't continue to suffer from these kinds of events.
Congresswoman Houlihan, this is Randy. I'll take that on behalf of FEMA, and then Bill can hop in here as well. So, Ryan, this is a really great question, and it's something that we deal with on a regular basis. So, what you've indicated, we have seen across the entire state. The weather patterns are changing. We talked a little bit about that, and the impacts are happening faster. We're seeing much more, or many more, significant precipitation events where we have a lot of rain in a very short period of time, and it overwhelms a lot of the stormwater runoff systems and everything else. Some of this, and this is something that's been on the radar for Governor Wolf and his administration, some of the things, it's a kind of a multi-pronged approach to this. So number one is having an awareness of the changes, but it's also what can we do about those changes. So, a lot of this goes back to more of a regional approach to planning, less impervious area. We go out to areas on a regular basis. We hear, it never flooded here until the upstream community put in this complex, or put in this mall, or put in this industrial occupancy, and increase the impervious surface, and now we have all this runoff. And unfortunately, disasters don't recognize jurisdictional boundaries, and what happens in one neighboring jurisdiction, unfortunately, impacts another neighboring jurisdiction. And I think the only way we get around that is by a more regional planning approach and taking a look at that, but also, as Congresswoman Houlihan indicated, is really investing in our infrastructure and identifying hazard mitigation projects. So we have a very active hazard mitigation team here that takes a look at projects. We always have more projects in the state than we ever have dollars for. So we're always looking at ways to be able to, get additional federal funds. Recently, the federal government started what's called the Building Resilient Infrastructures and Communities program. That's a little bit of a game changer. It is a larger pot of money that is available to the states. There's a competitive pot, and then there's kind of an assigned pot of money. That money can be used for larger projects. We are definitely, from our perspective, taking a look at that. So if there are hazard mitigation projects that can be implemented to be able to lessen the impact in Downingtown, that would be something that we would work with Bill and his team on, and the local municipality, to be able to take a look at those projects, what potentially could be done to lessen the impact of future flooding. So that's something that's really core to our business and what we do daily when we're not responding to disasters. But it's something that is a significant issue across the state with ailing infrastructure, as the Congresswoman indicated, but also because of kind of a lack of a good comprehensive regional approach to planning. So we're not transferring, one issue from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction that's a downstream community. And I think that's really key. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that space going forward at all levels of government to be able to protect folks from future effects of flooding.
Thank you, gentlemen. Anybody else like to contribute to that question before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, this is Bill Turner from Chester County. I would just quickly add that, hazard mitigation is a very important area, and I'll admit it's one of those that is often underfunded or underutilized, but the importance of it is in trying to buy down or reduce the risk. A lot of times these projects are very expensive, but they can really help us by investing in mitigation, not only keep people safer, but keep our property and sometimes our environment safer. So not just from flooding, but from a wide range of hazards. So, Chester County, as a lot of counties and states, have hazard mitigation plans in place. And we've had some preliminary discussions with Downingtown Borough, as they've also lost their police station in Borough Hall, of, rather than just rebuild and move back in, how can we make those buildings better or stronger so that doesn't happen again? And it's the same concept with homes, but as Director Padfield had mentioned, it could get very expensive to do it on a case-by-case basis. So really looking at it as a global issue of what we can do to invest in those mitigation projects. So I'd recommend, we have hazard mitigation planners on staff. We can certainly touch base and have those discussions with Downingtown Borough, whether it's their zoning or planning commissions or their council, and just start having those discussions and looking at those mitigation projects.
Yeah, Bill, I had the opportunity to visit the Downingtown Police Station, or what's left of it, and there was a long conversation about whether it made sense to rebuild as is or where is, or to figure out a different strategy or structure. And I appreciate that that's something that you're looking into, because it seems like a good thing to not do something over again that might not work. We have, I think, one more question. Is that right, Aubrey?
Yes, Christy, we have still a few questions. Unfortunately, we only have time for one more question. But as Christy mentioned, we will be giving everybody a call back within the next couple of business days. So we do apologize that we weren't able to get to everybody, but our staff looks forward to talking to you in the coming days. So with that, I will hand it over to Mr. Torres from Westchester. Mr. Torres, you should now be live.
Hi. First of all, I want to appreciate everybody for my question and giving me the time today. I live in the borough of Westchester, and what can we do as residents to support Coatesville and Downingtown with their flood issues? Because we didn't have any, and we were fortunate that. And Congresswoman Houlihan, how can we help them out? Because they're, 10 minutes away from us, to support them.
For that question, and I very much appreciate it. And we have sent out, and will send out again, a list of resources and ideas of people and places that you can be supportive of in terms of where help can be directed. I very much appreciate your question, and generally speaking, we have many, many community organizations in our church centers, community centers, those sorts of things that I will send out links to again after this call on our website as well. I'm not particularly in my position as a member of Congress able to endorse any one organization over another, but I know that there are many, many good ones in our area, and I'll be sure to circulate the links and information that I'm able to within the boundaries of the ethical requirements that I make sure to operate under. But I really appreciate the spirit with which your question was offered. We really are a community. I've been struck by that sense of community with COVID as well as with this particularly most current disaster. And so thank you so much for that question. I think with that we may be close to concluding in terms of the time that we have available for us. Before I conclude my remarks, I do want to ask you if you do have a pen or paper available. I do have a couple of phone numbers. One of them is information for those who are asking questions that related to small business administration. So those of you who are related to farms or to churches or to businesses, here's some information for that, which of course we will also follow up with you for other resources as well. The number for that is 1-800-659-2955. Again, the number for the resources for SBA or the Small Business Administration, 1-800-659-2955. The email is disaster customer service, all concatenated or pushed together, disaster customer service at SBA or Small Business Administration.gov. Again, disaster customer service as SBA at SBA.gov. You can also look for information on their website, which is https://disaster loan assistance, again, all one word, .sba.gov/. Again, disaster loan assistance.sba.gov/. And we'll be putting these up on our various forms of social media as well. I think it's one of the things that we've learned from COVID, that we have to reorganize ourselves to recognize the different kinds of businesses that are in our community, and I'm hopeful that some of the lessons we learned in how we help through paycheck protection programs and emergency disaster loans in that particular disaster will be able to apply to some of these kinds of disasters as well. And as a person who serves on the Small Business Committee, that's one of the things that I'm trying to bring to our committee to talk through. So I appreciate you bringing these up as issues. With that, the last website I'll give you is www.chesco.org, Chester County, abbreviated, chesco.org is another place where you can access resources too. With that, Aubrey, I just want to make sure that we're able to do some wrapping up remarks. Is that where we should be right now?
Yes, the floor is all yours.
Perfect. And I really want to thank, first of all, my sincere appreciation for all of our panelists for joining us this evening. And I know that you guys are extremely busy. I've been watching and observing all of the work around us to make sure that we can move forward on our recovery. As we've all seen, the recovery process is really only just beginning, and I'm really committed, as I know all of the folks who are on the phone are, to collaborative work and making sure that we're working together in the days and weeks and months ahead. This office is ready to help, and we'll continue to try and support your needs for public assistance so that our roads and bridges and public areas and our homes can get the assistance that we all need from our federal, state, and local government. As Aubrey said, given the high volume of calls and the limited amount of time, we weren't able to get to every single question. But if we weren't able to get to your call, please remember that my staff will be able to contact you within 2 business days with a follow-up. And we will, as I mentioned, share a recording of this town hall on our website, which you can get to at houlihan.house.gov. And Houlihan is spelled a little bit unusually. It's HOULAHAN.house.gov, and on all the posts on our social media accounts. So please do take a look there, and please, I encourage you to share with friends and neighbors. Another thing that I've learned in this process is that we really have a very limited ability to reach out to you. You really, in many ways, need to reach out to us to get assistance, and that's, again, another way that we're protecting your privacy. So if you do know somebody who wasn't able to participate in this call who might benefit from it, please make sure that you give them this information too. I know that this is a really difficult time for so many different reasons for our community, and please do know that I am doing everything, as well as my team, to deliver relief to our community that I know we really desperately need. So if you need anything that is related to this or anything else, please do feel free to reach us in our office, and you can reach us there at 202-225-4315. And with that, I will ask that you be safe and that you please take care of one another. And thank you so much for joining our call. Again, thank you to our panelists for joining us too.